So yeah, I know we don't have the thanks for playing right now, but I still want to get you guys together and talk about Watch Dogs because I played the game for over 4 hours, and there's a lot I saw that didn't make it into the preview, don't have footage of, but want to bring up some of the cool little periphery stuff and find out what kind of questions you have about actually playing the game. So what are your first thoughts from what you've seen so far?
Well, there was this game, the Syndicate. I think came out a couple years ago. They tried to reboot Syndicate, and it wasn't a stellar game, but I did like that you could. It was a first-person shooter, and you can go through environments and subtly affect things in the environment by hacking them.
Right.
And that was actually one of the mechanics that I liked about that game. I thought that was really cool. You go into an area and it's like, okay, I can see some turrets up there, some cover. Let me activate the turrets, activate the cover, and then engage. When you played the game, did you feel like hacking the environment was fluid and it actually affected the things that you were doing in an accessible way?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because the whole thing, I think one of the things that really makes Watch Dogs kind of different is the whole camera aspect, because you can hack anything that's in your line of sight. So if you can hack into a camera, then that changes your line of sight. So I was actually able to go through like a whole, quote unquote map, like a base or whatever, find one camera and find the next camera and then like bounce around and like get a really good lay of the land, figure out where things are, try to find my target, and then from there start screwing with things, start distracting people. And then, I was able to like freak out a whole bunch of guards, get them all gathered in one place, and then skirt around the outside of them and, grab their captain and get what I needed out of them. So that to me, that's why I was, before we started recording, it was funny, like you were talking about shooting guys in the face. I remember when I got the B-roll, I was frustrated because I'm like, you guys don't have any stealth stuff in here. You're just going around shooting and beating up guys. That's not how I played the game at all,
Well, that's actually that's good in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's good because it shows like a variety of different play styles. Did you encounter anything in the times that you've played the game where it's more action heavy and you're manipulating the environment while you're in firefights?
Yeah, so one of the things that we had to play, like one of the key missions that we played, they introduced sticky bombs and using sticky bombs and actually setting up like a series of booby traps. It was very kind of tutorial heavy, so I think hopefully later on it won't be like that obvious. It's like planting bombs here and here and here. But the idea was like, okay, you could see that, from surveillance tapes, you could see where guys usually hung out. You could see from tire tracks where they would pull up and park their cars. And so you'd stick bombs all over this area, and then when the guys drove up, then like any other object, you would, hack the bomb to detonate it. And then just start causing chaos. And then at the same time, I don't know that they're particularly realistic, but they had like these little pop-up sections of cover so that you could raise or lower those based on what kind of tactics you wanted to take. But yeah, that was a very action-heavy thing because you had to blow things up. You had to shoot guys. There was no way you're going to get through that mission without shooting guys.
One of my favorite things from GTA 5 are the assassination missions. Like, here's your target. Like, you just kind of figure out how to get them. Like, there's that one where there's a guy coming out of a hotel and he gets into a limo, and that was one of my favorites. Just approaching that. Brandon, do you feel like this game may have some of the same? Or
Well, I don't know. I mean, that sounds like a very specific mode. When you said target, was that an assassination mission, or was that just a regular story mission? Or?
I mean, targets could be a variety of things because sometimes somebody's holding an access code or something that you need, or some other piece of information, and then just like some of the little random quests as you have people walking around. Sometimes you're watching. You have to tail them and not get spotted until they start committing a crime, and then you can intervene and call in the cops or whatever.
They did release a trailer that was a hit, that was a CG trailer, but it was him sneaking into a boardroom and shooting all the guys in the room and setting off the fire alarm and then taking out that target. I definitely get more of an Assassin's Creed vibe because you think about the way Assassin's Creed is built, it's kind of the same thing on a very rudimentary level where like you would eavesdrop on a target
Yeah.
and then by listening to people you'd kind of pick that one guy out of the crowd and then using eagle vision you could highlight him and so he'd turn gold so you could spot him even though he's walking through this big area. Whereas in this game, and this is kind of what I want to get to about the stealth and the hacking that I really appreciate, is it seems so easy to get information. And I think that's like one of the big new things compared to something like a Deus Ex where you have to be at this terminal. Like you can hack something, but you have to be standing in front of it to hack it, or you can only hack this thing through this device that's plugged in somewhere, or just being able to cross the street like, hey, I'm just a dude on my phone, and like I'm making all these crazy things happen in the building.
So I kind of did it as more of a Splinter Cell style thing where like, okay, I would, distract somebody, take somebody out, move forward, and like kind of go like alternating between hacking and like, subduing guys. But Marcus, he actually just stood outside of this base, and so the guards looking at him were just like, oh, some guy's screwing on his phone. But he got through and got all the things that he needed to take care of without ever even walking in.
That's hilarious.
Another thing, like going back to Assassin's Creed, it was kind of funny when I saw they essentially have watchtowers that you need to hack to kind of like open up missions and kind of, make that area more your own. But what's interesting is, in Assassin's Creed or Far Cry, like you would just climb that tower. But, Aiden isn't, I mean, he has some parkour ability, but he's not like Superman, just like climbing up this side of a building. So there's more of a puzzle element of figuring out, I was like, okay, I know where the watchtower is, but I have to figure out how to get up this building. And so there's like forklifts you can hack and other types of things.
That's cool.
To kind of make a path for yourself to get up there and then actually get into the watchtower.
Yeah, because there's not this level of verticality in this game as there is in Assassin's Creed. I mean, it's more of kind of a horizontal playing field like Grand Theft Auto 5, more or less. But that sounds, to me, that's more appealing. It's like, okay, well, instead of just scaling this structure, I've got to figure out how to hack my way around it. That sounds really cool. Going back to your point, I think, and this, from when I played Syndicate a while ago, I love the accessibility of just, like you said, just walking and being able to interact instead of having to go to like a stationary terminal. And I think that is a progressive step in this kind of genre because old school, game design is like, yes, I see that terminal, I see that there are like wires going to these different areas. I know I can affect that door with this terminal. Now you just kind of figure it out, right?
Well, I mean, one of the things that's interesting too is that one of the guards in one of the bases that I had to tackle, he actually had like a camera clip to him. So now you have like a mobile line of sight. So if you can find a way to get him to someplace you want to be and then hack in and then you have, so it's interesting to see how that strategy can play into things in more complex situations.
This sounds so much more cerebral than I initially, thought, just looking at the footage. I think you're selling that a lot more than the footage has in the past.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's the thing too with the play styles. It's like, well, if I just go in there guns blazing, can I just bypass all of that? So it's weird to think about like how much of that is even a negative or is it a positive because you can take your own approach. The other thing that was really unexpected, you saw the spider tank, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, okay, what the hell? Like, what is this thing doing?
So there's a lot of little side missions like that, weird little things. So the spider tank, and there's another one that I played that was like basically Carmageddon, where like there's a bunch of like flaming demons with like flaming heads running around, and you're just like in this beefed up car, just like mowing down as many as you can. And then you can use the hacking mechanic to like create eruptions and blow a whole bunch of guys out at one time. And it was just about racking up points. It was total Carmageddon.
It's like the Saints Row effect,
Yeah.
GTA had the same thing. They had a couple of dream sequences, to just kind of let loose a little bit.
But these are purely auxiliary, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, it's just a total side mission.
They're just like hallucinations, like basically their version of just challenges.
Yeah. They had other ones that were they were based more on kind of like an augmented reality, like GPS type game, to where they would put like these like really like pixely looking elements on top of the world. So you'd have like a line of coins to pick up, but then they also had like skulls around them that you weren't supposed to hit. So it's kind of like a parkour free running course that they put in on the world. And then there was another one called Invasion, where it would basically like this portal would open up in the middle of the street, and like these, you know, pixely bugs would be flying around like Space Invaders, and you'd be shooting them with like laser blasters and stuff.
I like that this is kind of like Majora's Mask or like Bully, where everyone in this world is its own specific character. So like you can spot somebody, and I'm curious if you notice that, if you see like Susan Jenkins, who has like a heart issue, and then just like 3 or 4 hours playing in the game, like, oh, there goes Susan Jenkins again, or if it's just like constantly spewing just nonsense at you, where it's
I think that's the thing, is it feels like those descriptions are just like whatever randomness. So like if those are actual real people and stuff, like I would be super impressed, but I don't get the impression of that walking around. I just feel like, oh, here's a face and here's some random filler data that it's pulling out of a couple of databases.
Right, it just randomizes, like, here's the character model, and then there's variable X, variable Y, and variable...
But some of those variables lead to missions, correct? Where you can spot someone that's like plotting a crime on their phone, and then you can decide, oh, I'm gonna go stop them from doing that crime.
Yeah, but it still feels very, very random. Like who can you hack and who can you not hack? It's like, okay, well, here's some money, and I'll grab that money, and then I'll go to ATM and get it. So yeah, at this point, it hasn't sold me on that making people any more real. It's just, okay, here is some description of this random person walking around. What was cool though was the online stuff. It's kind of like a mix between like a Dark Souls Invasion and like the Assassin's Creed like hiding in a crowd.
The cat and mouse stuff.
Yeah, because and it was funny is like I played it and I didn't have a clear understanding of what was going on until they released a walkthrough.
Oh wow!
Because they didn't really explain it to us. They just kind of like left it open to play online if we wanted to play online. But yeah, it was interesting just like being in somebody else's game and them not being really aware that you were there, because everybody in your own game you're Aiden. But when you're in somebody else's game, you're just like a random NPC. So it's kind of like, trying to figure out like, okay, who isn't acting like an NPC,
Do they scale things down a little bit for that, or is it still like the open world? Because I could see.
I mean, from the way it looks, I mean, you can be in somebody's game for a while without them knowing you're there. So, I'm guessing that you probably can't do it when you're in a mission.
Right. Yeah, that would make sense.
But otherwise, yeah, I mean, you're just.
What's the objective? Just kill them?
No, actually, you can't kill them. You'll get kind of docked points or whatever if you actually attack them. But so one of the objectives is like you kind of have to hack into their phone and like get information out of them. And then the other one is a little bit more subtle, where you have to keep them in your line of sight and observe them for a set amount of time.
So there's no direct combat involved in that at all.
So basically what happens when you start hacking somebody, then that's when they get clued in.
So it's a little chase sequence or something.
And so then they can basically like counter hack you to shut you down. So it can basically works both ways, really, cat and mouse. And then there's some other things in there. There was I did a few online races. Where I still haven't quite gotten the timing down on hitting the blockers. So I'm like, all right, this guy's right behind me. I'm going to pull the blocker up and make him crash and keep going and like put the blocker, smash. I'm like, okay.
I have zero interest in the racing stuff for that game.
Well, I mean, something like GTA, I was not expecting to love the races as much as I do, and it's just like a real quick and easy way to jump into something, as opposed to, like you were saying, like they threw us into the game modes, and I didn't know what I was doing, whereas like racing's racing, So that could be fun. Depends on like the car physics and how big the map is, and really how fun it is like to drive around.
I mean, would you say that with all of the media that has come out in the past couple months, would you say that you're more excited for the game than you've ever been?
Yeah. It definitely dipped though, because it was. I think the one thing that's kind of turned me off a little bit is just like the main character is kind of weird. Like he's just too mysterious and shadowy. Like, and so when they started to add the story about like his niece is killed, and so that's always kind of dragged into it. It's like that guy doesn't have a niece. That guy's an action figure. It just didn't seem like a real person to me.
I feel like either his facial model has changed or they just have been showing him from a certain angle for so much that you almost don't recognize him at times. But he does feel like a little bit more like a real person, a little bit more grounded now than originally.
It seemed like initially they were selling the concept, and now they're selling the game. You know, now we're
That's a
seeing
good
like
point.
missions come together.
Yeah.
We're seeing all these game modes that are being announced. A lot of these other characters that he's talked to are have like showing a little bit more personality. And so yeah, as it's taking shape, it's like, oh, that's the game I want to play, as opposed to like, oh, sounds like a cool concept. Can't wait until we see more. So yeah, it'll definitely be a game that I will play. I'll definitely get through the story. I don't know how much time I'll spend in the multiplayer, but I will definitely check it out.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
You and I slip away undetected. You'll appreciate the plan tomorrow.